This is part 8.
So when I was taking apart the left head, I kind of realized that on the right head, I put the springs back in the wrong way up. So luckily it's okay because I can change the springs with the head on the car. And I've got this tool right here. And what this tool does is it grabs onto the spring and compresses it with this little thing. But I've modified it a little bit. Like this piece right here in the middle, the silver piece, I had to bend it in to make this gap smaller so it could actually grip my springs. And then also on the sides, it had these tabs that were kind of creating a clearance issue on my head. So I cut those off as well. And now I've been able to change the springs back around with the head on the car. Because the keepers are so small and I don't want to lose them in the engine bay, I've kind of taken an old sheet and wrapped it all around the head, so that way if the spring kind of knocks one of these keepers out, it's going to get caught in the sheets, hopefully. I've also wadded up some tape and put it in the oil passageways so that nothing can fall down into the engine. To get the keepers off, I've got my homemade keeper removal tool that I made out of a socket with magnets stuck inside. And I just put it over the top. And hit it with a hammer, and I've got the keepers in there. So the way this tool works is you fit these teeth into the grooves on the spring, and then you just spin this down and it compresses the spring. But see, this is actually the wrong way. I had the springs like this, but they need to actually go with the more coiled side facing down. This is what it looks like with the spring fully compressed. And I've got my spring retainer in there. So I'm going to slot this over the valve and put the keepers in. So I'm not using compressed air or anything to hold these valves up because I have new valve seals and they have enough friction to hold the valves up, but I just want to make sure that my valve is pulled all the way up. And then I'm going to take my spring tool, my spring compression tool, and drop it on there. So you can see with my tool on here, the valve stem is sticking up through the spring retainer. And that's the part where I need to slot this little keeper into. So that one's in the groove. Now I can get the other one. Sometimes it's easier with pliers. Just to get it in that first little slot. And there they go, see? Now that the keepers are in their slot, I can decompress the spring by unscrewing this. Make sure they're still in there. And as I unscrew this, this will bring the spring up around them. And they'll be sitting where they need to be. And that'll grip around the valve stem and pull the valve up. And then you just pop the teeth out of the spring. And there you go. So now I've got the springs right side up again, and I've got the roller rocker arm assemblies back on. I'm gonna refresh the valve cover gasket and seal the valve covers on. So before I put the valve cover on, I have to take out these old spark plug well seals and this old gasket. I have to take it out. Here comes this gasket. Take that off.
Okay, so I've got the spark plug well seals removed. They were all hard and cracked and bad, really bad, so I'm glad to replace those. And now I'm putting in the new gasket, so I'm just going to fit it in this groove right here and line up the holes. So once it's in this groove, I can put it back on, and I'll have to put the spark plug well seals on the actual wells themselves, which I'll show a little later. But I'll just press this seal down into this groove so that it's nice and snug in there. And when I torque it down, this will seal the head. So here I have the new spark plug well seals, and these just fit on top of the spark plug wells with the wider side facing up. So before I seal up the valve cover, I'm just going to drizzle some oil over the cam, just so that when it starts it'll have a little bit of lubrication. I'm also just going to take a clean rag and wipe down the gasket surface, just so there's no debris or anything that might mess up my seal. Now to place the valve cover gasket on, gotta go under the EGR tube. So I'm just gonna hand tighten down. There's 6 bolts, 10mm bolts that secure the valve cover on. I want to hand tighten them down. So now I'm going to torque down these bolts, starting with the center ones, and then I'm going to work my way out. Okay, so I've got them all to the first click. Now I'm just going to go around and confirm the torque. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the left head, starting with the spark plug well seals. Just going to fit those on there. And I'm going to drizzle some oil on the cams this time too. So I've got my new gasket in place. So I'm just going to take my valve cover and fit it on. And then grab my screws. So I got my torque wrench set to 4 Newton meters. And I'm going to start from the middle again. And just gradually tighten them in kind of a crisscross pattern. So I got my first clicks. Now I'm just going to go through and confirm the torque.
That concludes this part of the series. Don't forget to check the description for more information, and I'll see you in the next part.